The line over malfunction is caused by one or more lines being wrapped over the top of the parachute during deployment. As you can see, the parachute is being choked off by the lines and is unable to fully inflate. Sometimes this malfunction can clear itself after just a few seconds, but the lines are more than likely to tighten as the parachute tries to inflate. The line over malfunction is also likely to spin at a high rate of speed, eating up precious altitude. Emergency procedures should be initiated immediately. Lines is broken during deployment. The broken lines can be difficult to see by the person under the parachute. The parachute may look fully inflated, but could be turning slowly. It is also possible that it may be turning rapidly or not turning at all. The number of broken lines and the area in which they are broken drastically changes the parachute's flight characteristics. If one steering line is broken, a noticeable turn will develop shortly after opening. If other lines are broken, the result can be spinning, lack of control, inability to flare, or a high descent speed. If only one of the lines in the center of the canopy has broken, it may not severely affect the flight characteristics of the parachute at first, but it may cause an unacceptably hard landing. A controllability check to ensure that the parachute will fly straight, turn, and flare properly is essential. Damage to a parachute can be as severe as large holes and tears caused by a catastrophic failure to the parachute structure during the opening sequence. It can also be as small as a hole or tear the size of a baseball, which is caused from friction from the parachute lines against the fabric. Keep in mind that all parachutes have openings along the leading edge, and these should not be mistaken as holes. As a rule of thumb, if there is a hole as large as a volleyball, or if the skydiver can see all the way through the hole and see the sky above him, then it is time to initiate. Line twists are a common occurrence, and probably 25% of you will have some on your first few jumps. They also will occur from time to time during your skydiving career. Fortunately, they are not a big problem and are easily remedied. Line twists are usually caused by air currents twisting the bag which contains your parachute during the deployment sequence. Line twists do sometimes just happen, but they are more commonly caused or made worse by a poor body position. Try to imagine the deployment bag launching from a flat, stable surface like this table. It most likely will come off straight and even. If that surface were slanted or moving around, the bag will not launch level. At first, the line twists make it seem difficult to get your parachute under control. After a few seconds of untwisting, the parachute can be easily controlled and will be flying normally. Think of untwisting the lines as untwisting the chains on a swing of a schoolyard swing set. If you grab your risers and spread them apart and kick in the direction that is opposite the twist, the line's twists will come out in virtually all circumstances. This parachute had many line twists, which is much more than normally experienced. Still, it only took a bit of effort to deal with them and end up with a fully functional parachute. Rarely are line twists a reason for a cutaway, and even severe line twists can usually be fixed in less than 1 minute. If for some reason the line twists will not come out by 2500, closure will usually happen during deployment, but it can also occur during a turn, a stall, or during air turbulence. This is also easily corrected. As you can see, this parachute is not spinning and is controllable even with the end cells closed. Parachutes usually will continue to fly straight or turn only slightly if the closed end cells occur on one side. The cure for this is the same as the cure for the slider resting only halfway down the lines. Simply release your brakes and pump them several times smoothly to the number 3 full brake position. On a modern 9-cell canopy, a safe landing can still be made with 7 of the 9 cells open. However, it is important to follow the procedure to open all 9 cells because it is always better to land with a fully inflated parachute. A pilot chute can sometimes come back under the front of a fully inflated parachute after the opening sequence. At times it will snag or rest in the lines under the canopy. This can also occur after a radical stall maneuver is done intentionally by a skydiver. Therefore, a radical stall is probably best avoided even when doing your controllability check. Stalls are discussed at greater length later in this video. As you can see in this case, the pilot chute's location is not causing any problem since the parachute is rectangular in shape, flying straight, and is controllable. Only in rare cases would having a pilot chute under the main canopy make it uncontrollable. Both parachutes have opened and are flying in a configuration where one parachute is in front of the other and they are flying more or less in line. Since the lines of the reserve parachute are generally shorter than the lines of a main parachute, the parachutes will be at a slightly different height. This configuration appears similar to the wings of a biplane. In this case, it is best to only steer the parachute in front using the rear risers. Steer only as much as necessary to land in an open area. Again, there should be no attempt to flare and perform a good parachute landing fall. By side, the parachutes have both opened and are flying next to each other end to end. They will act like one wide parachute with the skydiver suspended between them. It is likely that the end cells from one canopy will be bumping against or at least be quite close to the end cells of the other parachute. The best way to steer this configuration is to steer the larger, more dominant parachute using only the rear risers. Steering input should be kept to a minimum, using only enough input to steer away from objects and into an open area. Generally, the side-by-side configuration will turn slowly on its own due to the difference in canopy types. But it will usually respond well to gentle rear riser inputs on the larger canopy. When landing, make no attempt to flare the parachute and perform a good parachute landing fall. The two parachutes are entangled and do not resemble any of these configurations. It is important to continue trying to inflate as much of the parachutes as possible for a softer landing. Sometimes pulling in the less open parachute may help allow the more open parachute to further inflate. There is no sure answer to this scenario other than to keep trying to get as much fabric inflated as possible and never give up. Do not attempt to steer the parachutes or to flare when landing. A good parachute landing fall can make a big difference and should be executed when landing this